Hey guys, what's up? We are back. Welcome to the No Cap
Yes.
Zone. As always, I'm your
Hey,
boy APT Songs, and over here,
Joe Hollywood in the building. How you doing?
hey, what's up? Been a while, man. How's your month of June been?
Man, it's been a lot going on. It's busy.
Yeah, it's been
But we
very
back
very
in it,
busy.
back in the world, mask off,
Ha,
go outside a little bit. I like it.
it's been nice. I know they're about to. I know with the whole Delta variant out, they're gonna probably start having to put masks back on real soon. But I'm like, if I can still go outside, totally fine.
That's just in California. We don't deal with that in Nevada.
It doesn't cross state lines.
Nah, that's all over there.
Oh my god.
Nevada been open since they just been open. I'm not gonna
Like
put.
last year, like May, like they were just we're
I'll
back.
put it this way: we closed for 2 weeks, and they was like, you know what? Just put a mask on, come back out.
Crazy.
We was just kidding. We was just kidding.
So today, of course, we're talking about. We'll get right to it. Getting to the Bill Cosby news. This has been the big story that hit today. So the short version of it is Bill Cosby is no longer in jail after 2 years of being found guilty of sexual misdemeanor crime of sorts,
That's
and
weird.
people have their feelings about what's going on. So I subtitled this show "Facts Over Feelings." Bill Cosby released freed from jail. And I did that because there's obviously going to be a lot of people having certain feelings about whether or not it should have been released. And then there's also the thing of like, but what are the facts that happened that led to this happening? So before we get into all that, I just want to know your overall opinion of like what you think of what happened today in terms of like, in terms of him being out first of all.
I'm gonna be real with you. I haven't fully processed how I feel about this situation.
Really?
It's
Okay.
a lot going on. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm happy a little bit that he's out. Like I thought it was kind of messed up that they threw him in jail in the first place.
Hmm.
And I know that's controversial. People are like, oh my God, how could you say that? But I'm like, come on, man. Bro's like, you know, he's up there. And yeah, we're talking about stuff from decades ago that's just now coming to light. And that dramatically change his life is like, I get it. Like I get he did some stuff, allegedly. We don't know, but even the people coming out with different things changed, and I didn't follow it closely enough. I just know there are people who recanted. There's stuff that they said shouldn't have been admitted. It's just all kind of like it felt railroaded. You know what I'm saying? Felicia Rashad, other people were like, "Yeah, this don't sound right."
Mhm.
It's a bigger purpose. It's more about stopping his agenda than righting some wrong he did in the past. And not to get too agenda focused, but the whole thing of Emmett Till came up because the lady who accused him confessed, and they decided that she was too old to put in jail, so they let her
Mm.
go.
Okay.
She's like a year or two off from Bill Cosby, who they had no problem locking up. And I have a problem with that
Interesting.
because it's just this kind of thing of, okay, well, he assaulted these women. This man is dead and has been for who knows how long. Was he a teenager at the time? They're in their 80s
Like
now.
13 or something like that. Yeah.
So we're talking what, 60 years of life he didn't get to have at all.
Mhm.
But we can brush that off. It happened so long ago. Who cares? But this man, no, that he got to go down for that. I don't like how that plays, and that's my
Mm.
whole thing. So
Interesting.
Bill, like I know, I mean, I didn't meet him. I
Mm.
was around.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know about my personal connection to Bill
I
Cosby.
did. No, I have no idea.
It's not a personal connection. I'm just joking. No, but he spoke at my graduation, which was like crazy to me. I'm like, really? And I was conflicted because he was like down on us. He was like, yo, yeah, I'm worried about you. Y'all are messing up. Y'all out here with your pants sagging. Like it was that speech. It was
Yeah.
that version of Bill Cosby that spoke at our graduation. He was like, bro, we supposed to be happy. We got our parents here. Why you like, come on, bro? So then, for him to kind of come from that, like, I'm gonna tell you how to behave to then being on trial for this, we was like,
Yeah. It's such an ironic thing of like this guy that was very much clean cut and being like, hey, you guys
mhm,
need to do X, Y, and Z and be, present yourselves a certain way, was the same guy that got accused of all this stuff. I will say I definitely have I have a slightly different perspective in a sense that there were a lot of years where I was actually working for a pretty established comedian, and I was part of working for him. I was going to a nightclub regularly and having to film. I mean, you know this already, so but people that don't know this history, I worked with the comedy club for like 2 years and film stuff and whatever. And so apparently in the comedy world among comedians, this wasn't like a secret. This is like a well-known thing that Cosby was regularly like doing things to women, whether it was harassment, whether it was we'll say graping, because that's YouTube censors, or other things like that. That was a well-known thing that he was doing amongst comedians. It was just kind of like, and that's why a lot of them actually did not hold him in high regard. Because it's like, I mean, we appreciate what he did for opening up the lane for black comedians, but he's also a hypocrite. And on top of that, he's a hypocrite in the sense that he's doing all this stuff. And in fact, it was Hannibal Barrows that kind of reintroduced the idea that Cosby is this guy that was doing this stuff to women, you know?
Yeah.
So because of that being around, and this is why I have the conflict of like, how I feel about it versus how the case went down. Because I could have the feeling of, based on things that I've heard in the industry and based on, you know, because it's hard to say, like, we could say, you know, 60 women are all out to try to destroy Bill Cosby. That's to me, that's very, very far-fetched. That like, if it was like 3 or 4 people, yeah. If it's 60 women over the span of like you're 70 years old, that becomes a bit more believable to me. So in terms of like, do I think he should morally still be in jail or serving some kind of higher punishment for that thing? I could say, based on what's been out there and what I've heard, I'd say yes. But the case part is where I'm like, he has to be set free. Because it's the same feeling I had with the OJ case, where it was, do I think OJ is actually guilty of this crime? Yes. But based on the rules of the court, which was like, if there's any kind of reasonable doubt, this man must go. And then the defense presents a situation where there's actually reasonable doubt. I could feel some kind of way all day about what OJ should be doing in jail, but what does the court say? And I think in that realm, I think that's where the courts got it wrong, which is why him being free, as much as I don't like it, I understand it. And so I actually pulled up, let me see if I can share my screen here. I can, yay. So this is the story. This is the story of the day, all right?
Yeah.
So Cosby released from prison after Pennsylvania court, yada, yada, yada. So basically, I don't want to read through this whole thing like exactly, but basically, the part down here where it says, basically what happened was that this initial case involving this person came up in 2005, as detailed in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. The district attorney investigated Constand's claims in 2005, citing what he saw as problems with Constand's credibility as a witness and the lack of forensic evidence. Castor ultimately decided not to go ahead with a criminal prosecution. So that means that, like, in terms of a criminal court case where he could actually be tried and to go to jail, that wasn't going to happen. But they were going to then allow her to have a civil case. As part of that civil case, basically, because they didn't go through with the main trial, they just go through the civil case, he can't waive his Fifth Amendment right to say, I'm not going to testify. Because in the civil case, he can just get found liable for damages, but he can't face any kind of like jail time if he says during that case, this is stuff that I did. So as part of that, he had to testify in the civil trial. And that's where he said the thing about, oh, I gave women Quaaludes. I don't know if he said specifically that he gave them Quaaludes and then, like, you know, grape them or whatever, but he said he gave them Quaaludes. And so as a part of that, he had to pay. He got found that he was just like the OJ thing. He was found like the things that he did resulted in these things happening to her, and he had to pay a $3.38 million settlement. So that's paid. Civil court, it's been paid. By law, he cannot be tried for that again. But what happened was they decided to reopen the case in 2015, 16, or something like that. And they decided to use the testimony from that trial in this new trial, which can't be done. And so he got convicted.
Well, beyond just that, he actually had a deal with the prosecutor that said that.
Yes.
So that's why it was legal. I don't think it normally would have been, but there was an actual.
The prosecutor said he, as part of testifying in a civil trial, he would not be facing any more criminal punishment for it. And so because of that, they decided 2 years later, oh, let's look at this again. Oops, our bad. We shouldn't have put him in jail. He's got to go free. And now they can't prosecute him for it anymore whatsoever. So so this is where
he was dismissed, like, okay, y'all done messed up completely. Let him go. Don't bother this man no more, like, because y'all messed up. And so, like, that's the twisted part of the justice system. And I'm like, typically it doesn't work in a lot of people's favor, but in situations like this, you know, I'm like, it kind of helped, but from his perspective.
And a
I
lot of
don't
people
know.
are
It's
also
just
well, a lot of people also stressing too because he had the money. Just like with OJ, because he had the money, it's the only reason he was able to get off. And it's like, yeah,
okay.
you pay high paid lawyers to do this.
I gotta bring up the OJ thing because I'm gonna be real with you. I was one of the people for the longest that was like, this don't sound right.
Mm,
And I don't know if I just try to see the innocence in situations or I just really want a story that makes sense. So if you're trying to convict somebody for murder or just some kind of heinous crime and throw them in jail, like you got to give me something believable. You
mm,
can't just like he did it because I said he did it. Nah, and that's
yeah,
not how the court system works. You need evidence, you need testimonies, you need all kind of stuff.
yeah,
And even testimonies, honestly, are iffy because like people's memories are faulty. People lie, have motivations. So I'm like, it's really not a good way to do it. But the point of all that is that's why they have like DNA evidence and all the rest of that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But with OJ, like the story sounded stupid. It was like, this don't make no sense.
Yeah.
So I honestly didn't think I won't say I didn't think he did it. I didn't believe what they said happened.
Okay.
Not a testament to his character that he couldn't have. No, you guys just gave me a dumb story. And I'm like, the dumb story doesn't fly. So
Yeah.
it wasn't until he told the story of what happened that night.
And
I
that
was like,
dang
oh,
book, the If I Did It book. Oh, if, oops. I mean,
I didn't even read the book. I saw an interview where he described it,
I
and
saw
this
that too.
dude kept talking about, yeah, because we did this, and then after I mean, allegedly, that's like,
Yeah.
oh my god, are you serious?
Hey,
Why
man,
did you
he's
put
not,
this nigga
Nick
on
was a great
camera?
actor, so he can pull it off.
Boy, but the thing that got me was he had an accomplice. That made the story make sense because
Mm,
everything that went down in court was like he just did it by himself.
yeah,
I don't know about this, guys.
very true.
It just
Well, it's
seems
interesting.
like
Speaking of the stories too, that's interesting with the Cosby thing, whereby if you go back and listen to like even the woman's story, and again, people, things get forgotten, and there's trauma things that happen whereby you might remember some things later, whatever like that. But there were a lot of things within her own story that also didn't make sense. Like for example, the thing happened allegedly. And then, like a few weeks later, she was trying to like buy him a sweater. A few weeks after that, like her whole family came out to see him at a comedy show. And it's like you were so traumatized by this event, and yet you're still actually actively pursuing to hang out with this man afterwards. That's where I get into the like, okay, if this happened, that doesn't seem like the action of somebody that would do something that, if it was that damaging to their lives, would still try to be around this other person.
so. This may be one of the things I'm hated for the rest of my life, but that comes up a lot,
Mm,
and that's something that I've been kind of looking at because of the fact that I don't understand how it's like, oh, okay, this is something so traumatic.
mm,
There has to be millions of dollars in damages, and you have to go to jail forever. Yet I can forgive it.
mm,
I can be cool with you. There's so many situations with celebrities that keep coming out, and it's always like some kind of public declaration, some kind of like attention grabbing. He's the worst, most horrible, blah blah blah. But then they'll be like, I just want an apology. And I'm like, maybe I don't think like the rest of the world thinks, or maybe I'm in a different place. But I'm like, there's certain things, certain lines that if you cross, I'm gonna need more than an
mm,
apology.
yeah.
And like, whether it's me, whether it's a family member, whether it's somebody I care about, it's like, yeah, this apology thing's not gonna cut it. You got to pay, um,
Yeah.
or at least be stopped from it happening again. You feel me? Like
Yeah.
so like the stuff you're saying is like, oh yeah, this happened, and then a little while later.
Yeah.
I have some examples I kind of don't like. The
Mm,
okay, the trippiest one to me was the Ron Jeremy situation. And
mm,
of course, it came out later that this was the only situation, and he does this all the time. And so he really was this horrible person. It's like, well, damn.
yeah.
But the one I read was a lady who was like, this is for those who don't know who Ron Jeremy is. He makes adult films.
Very adult films.
Let's not even call them adult. These are like he makes extreme adult films. We'll
Yes.
say it like that.
Private members only. Yeah.
Um, and so apparently he contracted an actress to participate and misled her on the terms of her participation. She thought it was going to be a solo scene, and apparently he didn't. So,
Yeah.
according to her, this is her talking. She was like, "Yeah, I got there, I started the scene, and then next thing you know, he was on top of me and we were having sex." And I'm like, it just struck me as odd that you didn't notice an entire human being undress, climb onto a bed on top of you, and then begin to like none of that
Yeah.
registered. So that's one thing. Okay, violation. She was like, I didn't feel comfortable saying anything, so I just allowed it to happen.
Yes.
Okay, I've heard that that's kind of a thing. I didn't want to rock the boat, whatever. But the R word was used.
Mm.
So to me, this is a clear violation. You've done something terrible and you need to be stopped. You're a horrible person, right?
Yes.
The story went on to say, well, after I decided to spend the night, and then he did it again while I was sleeping next to him.
Mm.
I'm sorry. If I was physically assaulted and had a chance to leave,
Yeah.
I feel like I'd go ahead and be like, you know what? It's been great. You'll be hearing from my attorney in the morning because you've been violated.
Yeah.
Not like, let me cuddle up next to you. I don't know. So I guess my thing is, if it's not that serious of an offense where I need to get out of here
Mm.
and do something about it, then how is it serious enough for someone to have to go to jail for 10, 15, 20 years?
Yeah.
That's the part that I don't get.
Well,
So
it's
with the
it's
whole,
interesting because not I think like a couple months ago, Demi Lovato dropped a new album, and as part of that album, she had a 4-part docu series on because she basically had a drug overdose again, and it got to where she almost died and had to come back and all this other stuff. Like this happened like a couple of years ago. So, but in the course that she said that what happened was the night that she passed out, her drug dealer had come over, given her some drugs. She kind of passed out a little bit, and then she got sexually assaulted. So, but the interesting part, what I found would be interesting part of the story was she said, okay, after she got out of the hospital, she still wanted drugs, and also she felt bad about the fact that that basically this guy had taken control of her, and so she called him up again because this to have sex with him because this time she wanted to be the one in control of the narrative, and she wanted to be the one to control the situation that was happening. And I guess because as a guy, I don't have that idea of like, oh, like to your version of trying to remedy the situation is I got to reverse this thing that happened so I can look like I'm in control of it the whole time. So I feel like it was my decision, and therefore I don't feel bad about the fact that I was violated. And so she invited him back over. They had sex, and then she felt afterwards like it still didn't help. Like it didn't make her feel any less that she got raped. It just felt like, oh, I did that thing, but like again, I still did it with the dude I didn't want to do it with, and now I've done it twice. And so it's interesting, like maybe that's the reason why these women, we'll say in the Cosby case, maybe that's why she was like giving the sweater, trying to, it's like, oh, I got sexually assaulted by him, but now I want to make this a thing, so that way the hookup that we had isn't based on the sexual assault, but based on like maybe we were having a budding relationship or something of some kind. And subconsciously I'm thinking, I'm hoping that it turns into that, so that way it won't be that I just got
yeah.
violated by Cosby.
And it's weird, but I've heard of situations that kind of go the other way too. Like basically where it was a questionable beginning and the guy would go too far, but
Mm,
they would end up in a whole relationship and be like married, kids, in love, the whole nine. And it was just like,
mm.
this isn't okay, but what? And so it's almost like
It's like Stockholm almost.
there's guys who are taught that that's what they're supposed to do, and there's
Mm,
women who sign off on it, and
interesting.
then it's not every person. So at some point, you're going to run into the wrong person. That's not, because even with the Cosby situation, with the Weinstein and everybody else, the whole casting couch thing, it's like we're acting like, oh my God, how could this have happened? But I'm like, who doesn't know what casting couch means? You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Like this is
yeah.
a industry term that's gone back forever. And I don't think it just started because guys were just like, oh yes, I'm gonna do this thing. Like there were women who wanted to get ahead who were like, hey, look, I'm gonna do this thing, and then you're gonna put me in the park.
Mm,
And so it had to have gone both ways to go as far as it went. But
mm,
it's just like, oh well, the men are evil,
right.
and that's it.
And
And
there's
so that's where it's just like a
well, it's always the question of like, because there's all the question of like, this is like the part that's very, very controversial that most people don't want to hear, but it's like, where does personal responsibility come into play? Because there's responsibility obviously of the guy, which is like, hey, you got to recognize that women don't want to be violated, they don't want to be touched certain ways, and so even if they're coming to you, if they're getting drunk, if they're getting woozy or whatever, and they might have said, oh, I'm cool with whatever, or in a situation, it's like ultimately you have to be able to read the situation and really be like, this probably isn't the best idea for me to operate on. I just tend to operate on like, if I'm not getting a full on hell yes to the situation, I ain't trying to play those games. And then you have the other side, and I feel this part too, where like you know and I've had the situation before where I've expressed this and I didn't get too positive of a response, but it's like it's this thing of like women want us to treat us like they're smart, but then when they do dumb stuff, they don't want to have us treat them like they're smart. So it's like if Cosby has a reputation for giving women quaaludes and taking them back to his place, and you know this, and then you go hang out with Cosby, and then he does this exact thing, we could blame Cosby all day because it is his fault for perpetrating the situation, but you knew going in what might happen. Why would you go? And that's why I typically have a problem with these kind of situations.
I'll say this, like being as close to the industry as I've gotten, like I've never been like Hollywood bigwig or anything like that, but I have a lot of female friends, acquaintances, associates, and I'll give them certain types of advice, and I'm like, any of them will tell you, like I'll offer to go with, like if you're uncomfortable going to a situation, I'm a cameraman, I'm a photographer, I'm a bodyguard, whatever role you want me to be in to have me on set, because whatever you're uncomfortable with won't go that route. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
The whole thing of like, oh, that's just me in the hotel room. Yes, it's common, but that's also a common place for foul stuff to happen. So it's one of those like, okay, you can do it, but just understand what you're walking into and have a way out if you choose that you want to get out. You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like
Yeah.
that type of stuff. So from the Cosby era, I feel like some of this might have been new, but I feel like some of the people knew what they were walking into. And
Mhm.
then it's a situation like, okay, I don't really want to do this thing, but I'm gonna make the decision to do it. And then I go and do it. Then I feel bad about it. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I didn't want to do that. To me, I'm like, the fact of the choice should still play a factor in that. But it's just
Yeah.
like, well, no, because it's a violation. She didn't want to do it. R word.
Yeah.
And you're just like, that's touchy to me because
Yeah.
there was still a choice made. And we're discounting that. So it's the whole thing of, okay, being treated like a strong, independent person who can make their own decisions.
Yes.
When you have this get out of jail free card, if you don't like a decision, I can say I didn't want to do that. Throw that
Right.
down. It's all your fault now. And that's the disconnect
Mhm.
that I have. So I'm just like, because to me, we talked about it with the last time we were on this topic with Paul
Paul?
brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
My whole thing is like, look, the way I feel, I'm a very protective type of person. If somebody
Mhm.
I'm close to is like, hey, this dude did this thing to me and violated, okay, we're gonna go hard at this dude.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a proper way to handle this that's gonna make sure that they understand not to do it again.
Yeah. Definitely.
Whether that's the legal route, whether that's a conversation, wherever we need to go with it. Um, I don't know where that is in these cases. I'm just
Mhm.
like, is this not a common thing? And I've actually had conversations with some of my friends where they were like, yeah, I've been in situations like that and nobody cared.
Mm.
Because I'm like, there's not a dad, a brother, a uncle, a cousin, nobody.
Yeah.
But you find out sometimes it is the dad, the brother, the uncle, the cousin. And so
Yeah.
you got
True.
families that don't want to turn on family. You got, oh my God, there's situations of like exes that'll come back in the picture and do too much.
Mm.
And then the person's like, well, I don't want them to, have any consequences. I don't want them to go to jail. I don't want them, shot, beat up, nothing. So
Yeah.
they'll kind of just be like, I'll let it go. So it's like, it's taken a while for me to kind of understand some of the motivations of why things are handled the way they're handled. And so it's just like kind of a, well, what do you do? Um, I don't know, man. On the
It's
flip
crazy.
side, though, real quick, we were
Yeah.
talking about basically like if it's a questionable scenario, then like back off. It's like, oh well, you were saying like people, oh, I'm gonna get drunk and do drugs, and then we're gonna do this thing, and it's like, oh well, no, I wasn't coherent to do, and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
I've seen situations like that where the guy actually does back off, and the woman loses interest. It's almost like a negative to have not pushed through the barrier.
Right. And it's funny because some would argue, well, if she loses interest because you didn't try to get with her when she was drunk or whatever, well, then you don't need to be that kind of woman anyway. And it's like we've literally heard women say, oh, like I like to have a little wine or get a little buzz, so I'm a little more loose when I'm doing whatever, because it makes me more open to those kind of things happening. So we have these two situations going on where guys being told the story of, hey, don't get a woman if she's drunk and she can't make a decision, but also, oh, but they're going to drink some wine and get loose so they can make those decisions. What
Well,
do we
I
do?
actually had it explained. Like, I had one young lady say, talk about a date where she wanted to do so. Oh, he had his game was amazing. He had such good game. I was like, oh, do tell. Like, what do you mean? She said, oh, well, I had the first drink and then I was debating if I should have a second one or not. He just ordered my other drink for me. And she was proud of how well he knew the game that would loosen her up to go further with him. And I'm like,
Right. And we're looking because we were the dudes that were like, but respectful, and they don't know. We got to make sure they're it's consent. They got to be have a full mind to do that. We can't get them, and they're like,
I'm telling you, I've seen it time and time again where a dude who doesn't follow the typical pattern will be looked at an outcast. And you're just like, for
yeah,
trying to respect you, that's a turnoff.
yeah,
All right. It's a weird game we're playing, but sure. So, oh, you keep talking about the consent side of it. There's an episode of Grownish, the
mhm,
Blackish spinoff where she's in college,
yeah,
and yeah, a situation with like one of the athletes came up and it hit the news, and it turned out to like be a not what it was cracked up to be. It was like a misconstrued story, but the point was the school decided to make a policy, and they were like, okay, we know that there's sexual situations on campus and blah blah. We said, okay, for anything that happens, there has to be enthusiastic, sober consent at every step of the way. And the kids were like torn. They were like, what? Like, yeah, so basically, like when you meet, everybody has to be like, yes, yay, go. And then
mhm,
we start talking and you go somewhere else, yes, yay, go. And then, you can't really have any drinks, maybe a drink, but you got to be sober.
yeah,
So we have to have not just like it's got to be excited
yes,
and sober. And half the people were like, I don't even have sex sober. Like, I don't know if I've ever done it sober. Like, what are you talking about? And
yeah,
so it was like this tear. It was like, no, consent is sexy. And other people were like, like, I've actually heard people say, like, I like to be taken. I don't want
yeah,
to, like, the whole consent thing is like, but like, we're shifting into this whole consent is sexy. Like,
yeah,
it's almost two different generations of people.
yeah. And
And
that might be
again,
a
we're
thing because
crossed over.
sometimes I feel like maybe we're the older generation because it's like up to like
Oh, we
we've
are.
been
There's no
told.
maybe.
We've been taught the whole time. It's like, oh, it's like, because it's weird to have the thought of like, so you just go up to you're going on a date with a woman. You're like, hey, we had a good time. Do you want to come back to my place for sex? Like, is that okay with you? Like, because that sounds, at least in our practice and experience, like that's going to be like either A, they're going to think that you're just out for sex, or B, it doesn't allow the game of like, oh, it's things are just kind of happening and there's sensuality. And the next thing you know, I just kind of got pulled into it and it's not like
Well,
they're,
it's forcing responsibility. It's forcing the
yeah.
choice.
But I'm curious.
And
I'm curious if the current generation if that actually works for them because it sounds asinine to
well, it sounds as if I guess the younger or the next generation, that's what they're trying to make normal.
Interesting.
Um, but I would say there's a little more of a cat and mouse to it. And from what I can tell, there's a lot of women who are like basically they don't want it to be their choice. They don't want it to be their responsibility. It's like, oh, he
Mm,
swept me off my feet.
mm,
Phrases like that, where it's like, I'm trying to be a good girl who's preserving myself.
yeah.
I just couldn't help myself because he took that. Like they want you to take the burden off of them for that choice, and they're
Mm,
okay with it if they're okay with it.
right.
But then
With
it's
the
like you
asterisk,
added
with the
this
asterisk being
clause
that at
of
any time if they decide to change their mind, you got to be cool with it.
that's the part that's scary about it now because it's like okay, if you change your mind 10 years from now, I could be going to jail.
Mm,
What? And
yeah.
then it's a well, you said, I said, he said, she said. Like what proof is there at this point? What evidence of anything? We're talking about laws.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's making me like weary about this is we're talking about legal ramifications. It's not just it's one thing for reputation, it's one thing for jobs and all of that. But we're talking about people going to actual prison for something that happened so long ago. There's no way to prove it one way or another.
Yeah.
It's this person's word. Well, I don't know if we can believe her. Okay, now there's 60 people saying it. So it's
Yeah.
got to be true. If all these 60 people say it, then this one has to be true. So you're going to jail.
Yeah.
But typically in the past, that word we can't say, there are ways to prove it. There's definitely ways, scientifically, legally, there's swabs and all type of stuff
Mm,
that can be done till there's unquestionable evidence and this dude's going to jail.
yeah.
But it has to be done like that day. And that's the part that throws me off. It's
Mm,
like if somebody punches me in my jaw right now
yeah.
and breaks it, I can't wait till next year and be like, this fool punched me and broke my jaw. They're gonna be like,
Yeah.
Okay, why didn't you say something when it happened? But that's the current climate. It's just like whenever I
Yeah.
feel like I have this card to play.
Yeah, and I imagine too, it makes it harder by the fact that to be fair to any women that are watching this, that it is true that a lot of cases, unfortunately, like women go out there when they do try to talk about it, they don't get believed by it, or they get like they'll. In the case of somebody like Cosby, where it's like, oh, he's such a powerful guy, you're not going to take this powerful guy down, or he's making these various channels so much money that we're not going to allow you to damage his reputation, even if he did something wrong. I imagine that part is probably equally as hard. It's the thing of it's like this weird thing of like you want to report it when it's done, but at the same time, what will happen to your life? A lot of times, the victims, unfortunately, end up getting their lives torn apart when they do come out with that kind of stuff. So I imagine it's hard on that end of things. While at the same time, it's like, but then if you ever think at all you're going to come out with the thing that happened, why wait 30 years? Why wait 40 years? That's when it's like now you're talking about statute of limitations. You're talking about like the details get fuzzy. You're talking about like, is the thing that you remember the way you actually remembered it as it was, or what? Like, there's some of the things that happen in that time.
And that's the thing too, though. Like the scenario you're talking about, I feel like is how things were. To be honest, in this Me Too era, I don't see that really being a thing anymore. I'm like, okay, yeah, there's the fear of it, but is that really the reality? Like, you could be like, this dude sneezed on me, and the world is going to jump down their throat at this stage of the game. So, any ladies that's watching that have something that happens like currently, you need to say something now, like as soon as it happens. Like I said, get the evidence. If you come out, if you go to the police and say, this is what happened to me, they do a whole process. And I understand it's demeaning, and I understand it's embarrassing, and I understand it's difficult. But my thing is the level of the punishment that's required, the way our legal system works, it's based on evidence. It's based on someone is innocent until proven guilty. That's just the way it's set up. And there's something valuable about that we can't just throw away because it gets it wrong sometimes.
Do you
And
think
this
it's
is
currently
coming
fair how it's set
from,
up?
huh?
Do you think it's fair how it's currently set up in terms of like how it's set up to the system is set up to be able to decide if people are guilty or innocent based? I mean, because you got
Oh, it's
courts, the
far from
jury.
perfect.
Mm,
It's there's a lot of flaws in the system, but I'm over here like I haven't really seen a better system, to be honest with you.
mm,
I'm over here like there's ways for it to work. And I'm like, yes, the rich and powerful have some advantages, but as we've been watching, rich and powerful people go down all the time.
mm,
So I don't feel like that's the excuse anymore. I'm like, if they
okay.
took down Weinstein, if they took down Cosby, if they took down like who who's not going who's bigger than that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got like Epstein. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, if you're dealing with Epstein level stuff, but you see that something happened there too.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, yes, I get it. But if we're not on some like presidential accusation level,
Mm,
bruh, like say something. Say
mhm,
something while there's time to prove it.
yeah.
Because I'm sitting there like, if it's proven, I'll lead the charge. Let's go. Let's get
Mm,
it. Because that's not okay. I'm sorry. It's just not.
yeah.
But it's just the whole, like you said, it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to be able to do anything. I don't want to say anything because it's not going to happen. So that to me, that's a decision. You see what I'm
Mm,
saying? There is a choice made. Oh, it's too hard to go take on this monster. I completely understand that choice.
mm,
But to what level do we say that is a choice? You see what I'm saying? That is a decision that was made by a rational human being who's an adult who can legally make their own choices.
mhm,
So if there's a statute of limitations, it's like, oh, well, she was intimidated, so let's just wipe away the law because she didn't feel comfortable about it at the time.
right.
I'm
And
like,
that's
how far does this go? And then the whole
right.
thing of believe all women. I already brought up the lady who accused Emmett Till. I mean, we could throw
Yeah.
names like Casey Anthony out there. We could throw names. There's people who will
Yeah.
say things that aren't true.
And
So
it's
you
funny because
can't just believe somebody because of their genitalia.
well, it's funny because like statistically, they say like in terms of like that stuff, like they say only about between 2 and 8% of accusations are false. And those are the ones that are reported. Because I imagine there's a lot more. I think about things like guys that are involved with, like, say, their exes in court cases that involve kids. And it's like they don't want to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing to lose that thing. So if something had happened to him by way of her or whatever, it's like, if this thing comes out, is that going to help me to get my kids or whatever? I best just keep my mouth shut. But but even with that said, it's like that doesn't make the cases that are out there like any better because like I like I said, to be fair, it happens a lot more to women And even on our levels, though, it's just like that's
Well,
not
is that true though? It happens a lot more
at
to
least.
women in dating scenarios. But if we include jail,
Hmm,
I don't know that women get raped more often than men do. And guess where the men who get accused of rape go? And what do you think happens to them when they get there?
mm.
So, do we honestly think women get raped more than men?
I think that it gets more reported because I think a lot of men obviously are like would be it's uh it's already a demasculating act. So to be a guy that's going there and say, "Oh, I got raped," I imagine for most guys that's probably not going to be a thing that they admit.
Oh no, I'm not saying by a woman.
I didn't say by women either. I just said in general.
And then if we're talking about prison, who you reporting it to? Where are they going to get the extra year? Is anybody going to care? Like,
Yeah.
bruh. So I'm not
Now
saying
I'm
every person who goes to jail, but I'm like, that is the most common place for a man to get raped. And
yeah, no, that's true.
so, just saying.
So one thing I want to touch on is obviously we have Cosby himself that, there are a lot of people that have opinions about him coming out of jail, whatnot. But what's interesting is he also has people that are on his side that said he didn't deserve to be in jail. I know Felicia Rashad came out with a statement today that everybody wants her to get kicked out of Howard now because she was saying basically, I'm glad Bill's out and free. And then there's other comedians that were also on his side. And those people are now also, they have a threat of getting canceled. So I guess my question is,
Cancel
how do you
culture.
feel? Because I know I feel some kind of way about, I don't think that whether the worst, absolute worst murder in the whole world, this and that, like if that person has friends and they end up getting locked up for some extremely bad stuff, should their friends now abandon them because society's like, this is a bad person, you shouldn't support that guy anymore?
I mean, that's the whole cancel culture situation. It's just like we decided this person shouldn't exist, so no one can like them. And it's crazy to me. And I'm like, I've seen it small level. It's now become like national level events. I'm like, your friends, your family. I can't say necessarily that people should just be abandoned and hated by the entire world. Like, how is that helpful to anything? There are things that I think are violations to, how do I say it? There are levels of violations that people can go to that would justify it. But I'm over here like, that still should be the choice of the people. Like,
Mm.
there are serial killers with girlfriends who are pen pals. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, there's mothers who still love their children after heinous crimes. It's
I
just
was I was thinking on a basic level, just that, like, if I know if I commit some kind of crime or some heinous thing, I go to jail. Of all people, my mom's still gonna probably be like, "Hey, that was some effed up stuff you did. I still love you, but god dang." But that wouldn't
right.
take away her wanting to like be like, "Hey, but I still love my son" or whatever. So the fact that people can't get the concept of like, Felicia Rashad had a whole show with him and had a whole two shows with him, and then did stuff in
And
theater
I'm
and
gonna
stuff with
say
them.
that's something else that got my attention because the people who either supported or didn't attack him, because I was looking for them. I was looking for the cast members. I was looking.
Mhm.
Felicia Rashad was like, "No, this is not that."
Yeah.
And I'm like, even whatever's going on, and I'm like, "This is a woman. This is a really strong woman who's like, I'm not telling you to believe these women. I know this band. This is what I'm telling you." And I'm over here like, that was powerful to me.
Hmm.
Um, I remember they tried to bring Raven Simone into it. She was like, "I
I
was
ain't
a
saying
kid.
nothing.
I ain't got no parts to do with this. Leave me alone." And I was
Yeah.
like, "That's strong." And I don't remember specifically, but Lisa Bonet, I was waiting for Lisa Bonet to tear him a new one
Mm.
because the whole thing with her was a morality thing. When she posed nude and he kicked her off the show and that whole deal.
Yeah.
So I was like, if anybody gonna have something to say, I don't remember her being like, "Yes, string him up. He's the devil." Like none of that. She was kind of like I don't like him, but I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
really? Okay. So then it's like, well, maybe how do I put it? Maybe they weren't his type. Maybe he had a different type that he pursued in this way.
Yeah, maybe.
So I'm like, I guess you could make that argument, but I don't know. It's like for it to be that known and that big of a, it had to have been apparent. And I feel like also at the time when they were going through, like I said, hers was a morality thing. She lost her job. She lost her role on the show over this.
Yep.
So if there's somebody who is known to violate in this way, and you mad at me for taking some pictures, like that should have come out then. Like, are you serious? Look, this is yo dirt. Like
Yeah.
to not just you know what? So all of that was like crazy to me. So, but just as far as supporting your friends, there are people who've done too much where I'm like, you know what, I can't deal with this. I can't
Yeah,
support you. Um, but that's still their choice. I don't feel like
yeah,
you can tell somebody how they should feel about somebody they care about, regardless of why you feel that way. You see what I'm
yeah.
saying?
And I can
Now,
kind of
I
get,
can choose to disassociate with you if I don't like it.
yeah.
I can't tell
Like,
you how I feel.
well, we kind of I think about like we always go back to the Hitler thing. Like, I imagine like if somebody's like, "Oh, I'm friends with Hitler," as he was, it'd be kind of like, okay, like I understand the whole like if you're associating with this person, therefore I now view you a certain way also. So people that want to do that, they're in their right. But I still wouldn't be like that person needs to like completely get rid of Hitler as a friend. Like if that's what they want to do, I ain't got to be around them. But I'm not going to be like, how dare you, Vincent? Like it's just
You
ultimately
you you do kind of get caught in the birds of a feather thing. Like if you stand for somebody who's done something, it's viewed as though you're signing off on what they did.
yes, which is yeah, which makes it's understandable why that would be a viewpoint. Yeah.
So I'm like, I can see it, but I'm just like,
And in this case, I'm like, okay, that means that if Felicia's supporting him, then that means it's probably on her end of things. She's probably thinking that he's legitimately innocent. They didn't do that stuff. So again, I got to agree with him, but if that's her viewpoint, well, I'm gonna be like, well, just because your viewpoint's that, you still need to cancel him. That literally makes no sense.
I think that's why I'm kind of like leaning the other way because I'm not a fan of this whole cancel culture. I'm not a fan of just let's all collectively jump on this person and destroy their life. Like
Right. We've all, as a society,
this
determined this thing
sucks.
must have been the way that everybody said it. So they must. It's like the fact that there's even some kind of doubt
And
there.
just based on an accusation, it don't. Once again, court of law requires proof. Cancel culture, we're just going to decide it's you today. It's your
That's
turn.
the thing. Cancel culture is mostly based on feeling. I feel this,
Oh,
like I can look
absolutely.
at it because every day now it's like every day, like, oh, this person said this tweet that I don't like, therefore cancel them. And it's like,
And I'm
it's
like,
just a lot.
it's a tweet. Like, okay, I don't know. Like to me, this stuff is stupid. But
Yeah.
I guess. Um, I think the realest thing to me is when like it takes people protecting the person. Like if you're the one being canceled, there's nothing you can say. You're just kind
Yeah.
of victim to the mob. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I mean that. It reminds me of like Frankenstein era, like
Yeah.
string them up, kill them,
And
torches
what's
and
even
pitchforks. Like that's what it feels like. Just the mob is angry with you, destroy them, and then after the fact, like, oh, maybe we messed up. But it's too late because you're already
yeah.
destroyed now
And what's
in the
even worse
emotion of the moment.
What's even worse is like, and I will say this because I was not a fan of Trump, but the one thing that I recognized was that he never apologized for the dumb stuff he said. And I think he recognized that whenever you apologize, it only gets worse. Because every celebrity that's come out, like I look at the Chris Harrison thing with the Bachelorette, where I mean, I don't know if that story. Basically, he said some stuff alluding to one of the contestants had a party on a plantation where they dressed up in like antebellum style stuff. And this one of the black contestants from the show was interviewing Chris and said, "Hey, so how do you feel about that?" And he was like, "Well, I mean, it's just a Southern party. We should just lay off for him, blah, 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 blah." Because he was not very well versed in like what all that meant. So the internet let him know what that meant. He came out 3 times and gave 3 different apologies and still got kicked off the show. So what's the point in apologizing if it doesn't actually do anything?
That part.
And that's where cancel culture is. It's like because I think it'd be better to like, okay, let's give the person a chance. We're gonna say, hey, this is why what you said or what you did or what you tweeted is effed up. Learn from that. If they say, you know what, I'm gonna take actual steps to learn from that. My bad. I'm gonna give a donation to this thing, and I'm gonna take some lessons. I'm gonna be sorry, and then
That's
legit
my
mean it.
thing. Like it goes too far. So let's go back to Cosby since that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So I'm still kind of like getting some details of it, but from what we shared earlier, this is the same accuser that had the
mhm,
civil suit. Is that true?
yes,
So what we're saying is there was a violation. He did something horrible and heinous to the person. He was taken to some sort of trial and paid some sort of recompense in the tune
yes,
of several $1 million. What we're saying is, okay, you have fulfilled the retribution for your action, but we decided that it's not enough
right.
after the fact.
We didn't feel like it was enough. We feel like we need more justice for you.
So to me, the problem with cancel culture is it goes too far. It's not that there shouldn't be recompense, it's that there's no end to it. And like
Mhm.
you said, once you apologize, all that does is admit guilt, which is why it bothers me so much when there's an accuser who's just like, I just want you to apologize. I just want you to admit what you did
Exactly.
because it's not true. It's I want to destroy you. I need your help because I
And
can't
rarely
prove it.
and rarely is the apology ever good enough. It's always like, well, you didn't say, like he could, for example, he could say like, hey, so I'm sorry that I, sexually assaulted this woman. Oh, well, you didn't tell the other woman. Okay, I'm sorry for the other women too. Well, but you can't go back and change it. So why am I apologizing?
So at the end of the day, it's like, so where does this go? And this whole thing of like, oh, we just need to teach men not to do these things. Okay, I can go with that.
Yeah.
The problem is, what do we do about the ones who don't listen? Because the whole thing is it's just men's fault. Men need to be taught better. Men need to learn not to do these things. There's a lot of men who don't. Just leave that out there for a second. Not every man does these things. There's a select few who apparently represent all men.
Hmm.
That's another topic that we still need to cover.
Oh, trust me, I got a lot to say on that too. So yeah, that's
But
another day.
there's going to be horrible things that happen in this world, plain and simple. And the thing that needs to happen is those individual things need to be dealt with. To be like, oh, this happened, so now everybody has to be punished.
Mhm.
Kind of doesn't make sense. And then the whole thing of there's no clear set boundaries to what punish means, or I keep trying to think of the word reconciliation.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, and it's not even to be like, oh, there should be a price tag for it. You know what I'm saying? It's not like a, oh, if you pay a certain amount of money, what you did goes away. It's
Well,
like,
it's clearly,
no,
if clearly if we set one, it's still gonna not matter. So
but it's just one of those things like the reason money is a punishment is because it hurts the person. You see what I'm saying? Like,
mm,
even if you got millions of dollars, right? If you got $10 million and you got to pay somebody three, you felt that. You see what I'm saying?
yeah.
It took something away that you thought you had. It's that same kind of concept. And it's like,
Mm.
other than allowing you to now assault them, like what else can be done to rectify it? So it's like, okay, well, they need to go to jail. Okay, there's a process for that. Well, we don't want to play by those rules. We don't want to follow that process because it's difficult. Okay, so where does that leave us? And it's just this big kind of confused, angry disconnect between people right now. And I'm like, I don't know how to get back from it.
Mm.
But I'm just like,
Yeah, it's a lot of like either you gotta be on one side or the other. And if you think this way about this thing versus this way about this thing, then you're mortal enemies. And this person over here is sexist and misogynist, and this person over here is
it's the
is
name
that.
calling, it's the
Yeah,
polarized arguments, it's the us versus them.
yeah,
That is the truest concept I have understood in the last couple of years. This whole
yeah. That's what caught on.
you, me, us, them. There's no we together. It's two separate teams, and the other team has to go. And that's just at least the American mentality right now. If you're not
Yeah.
us, you're them, and them got to go.
And there's no room for like nuance or like even discussing like the potential gray areas of things. It's just like, no, it's all or nothing. And because I mean, we have great conversations. We have stuff that we disagree on, but we're still able to like have talks and be like, oh, let me get your perspective. Okay, I can take a little bit from this. I can still say my part over here and feel these things over here, and it's no harm, no foul. But it's really hard to have those discussions in a society where it's like everything's so gung ho of like you're trying to be on a certain team and you don't really want to hear any other people. You just want to just talk and have your say, and you want to say your views. And if you don't agree with my views on this person, then I got to get rid of you. I got to cancel you. You're bad. What this is that? Like that's a hard way to come to any kind of civil discussion.
Well, the thing that bothers me even more is it's not even my views. It's this is what my team says, and I'm going to ride or die for my team.
Mm,
And half the time, people don't even fully comprehend what their team is saying. They just pick the team and they're willing to die for it. And you're like, are you listening to the arguments you're putting forth? Well, this is what we say. It doesn't make any sense. And you can't have a rational conversation because it's just, I'm just going to keep repeating these talking points and say you're not listening to me.
yeah.
And you're like, none of your talking points make any sense. Here's the actual conversation we can have. And it's like, well, I'm just going to repeat what I said before.
Yeah.
You're a misogynist, you're a hater, you're this, you're that, you're a racist. Like we're so quick to call somebody
Yeah.
a violating name to label them as a
And isn't that
hateful
ironic?
individual.
Like they want to call people names. Like I
It's
just someone
dehumanizing.
so much of Twitter today. Just there's this rap, going on people about like, oh, you support Bill, you're this, and that, blah 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 blah. It's like, how is that any better than what Bill allegedly did?
Well, that's the thing. It's dehumanizing. It's making your enemy less than human. If I can
Mm,
call you anything but a person, this is going kind of deep. But if you look at every genocide,
mm,
I'm thinking a lot of the African nations over the years, and like kind of the portrayals of what happened, and you'll
mm,
always hear people referred to as some type of vermin, or these cockroaches, or these rats, or
mm,
these. I'm going to call you something that I'm okay with killing. Because if you're not a human, I don't have to feel bad about it.
mm,
If you're, who cares if you kill a cockroach? Oh yeah, I killed 15 cockroaches today. No, you kill people who you called cockroaches. You see what I'm
mm.
saying?
Yeah,
So it's in that same kind of mentality of you're the enemy. I don't see you as a human. I see you as something else I can hate and feel okay about. I can go to sleep. I can look in the mirror.
yeah.
Um, was it Cat Williams was joking about it with the war? He was like, they don't use words that we readily recognize. They were like insurgents. There were 15 insurgents today. He was like, I don't know what I don't have no insurgent friends. You can kill all of them. I don't identify with an insurgent. But if you said 16 people,
Yeah.
5 men, 2 children, whoa, bruh. You killing men and children? I thought it was just insurgents. Like
Mhm.
it sounds it's subtle, but it's effective. We can
Makes
like
a big difference. Yeah.
disassociate. So it's like you say, oh, this person's a racist. Oh, cool. I'm not dealing with you. You have no points with me. I don't have to listen to nothing you say because you're racist. So
Yeah.
whatever you say is a violation.
And you go into the conversation already thinking whatever they say, I have a viewpoint of them being a racist, so it's going to be racist stuff. And they can
Manipulation.
be speaking perfect knowledge all day about some stuff, and they still be like, but they're a racist, so I'm not going to listen to anything they have to say.
I think we brought this up off camera, but that's what I was saying earlier. Like, there's some perspectives I had to kind of reconsider because I was coming in with a certain biased mindset. But it'd be people that I'm listening to that I agree with like 9 times out of 10. And then there's this one little part of my, no, I can't get with you on that. But I'm
Yeah.
like, but so much else makes sense. Okay, let me
Yeah.
turn off my bias and actually listen to what they're saying.
But see, the
And they have
problem is
some
people,
good points.
but the problem is people will throw away, well, because they said these things that I don't agree with, I'm going to throw their whole thing away. And it's like,
Oh,
we have to be able to discern and say, okay, you know what? This person said 10 points. I agree with 6 of them. The other 4, and I can still have a good conversation on that. And I don't have to agree with every single thing to have this be an important conversation or something that's going to gel with me, you
but that
know?
takes analysis. That takes thinking about it. What most people want to do is pick a side, hear what they're supposed to say, and regurgitate that information in every argument. What is what we're supposed to say about that? And this is if you don't believe this, then you're this, and this.
Yeah.
Do you even believe it? Well, I said it. What does it mean?
Hmm.
Well, this is just what it is. It's just the truth. So you don't really know what you're talking about. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
this is what so and so said. Okay, now we're getting to it. You're saying what they told you to say. Got it. So can I go argue with them? Because you really shouldn't be in this conversation. And that's really how I feel. Like I stopped having a lot of arguments because the person I'm talking to doesn't even understand their argument. They're
And once they're in
literally
a
just
circle, it's kind of like, oh, they're going to keep saying the same thing. Okay, I'm going to just jump out of this now because there's no point. You're just like, yep, okay, let me
you
go.
kind of hit
Great.
this loop. It's funny
Yeah.
because like you get to a point where you can predict the conversation because you know the other side of the argument. So before they say it, you're like, you're about to say this. Well, yeah, and then you're gonna say this next. Oh, and this is the point where you hit this. Well, if you know the argument, well, why don't you believe it? Because it's stupid. I just know the words. Doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
It's just so much stuff. It's just like, well, this is what whoever I'm paying attention to told me to say, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm gonna keep saying. And if you don't agree, you're a this, or this. All
Yeah.
right. So I get to the point like I don't want to talk about it. Let's just like why? Like if you're
Yeah.
genuinely having a conversation and listening, that's one thing. But if it's
Yeah.
just
Very true.
but it's both sides. Don't get me wrong. Both sides do this. It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
this side or that side. Both people. Because like I feel like I'm kind of on the side of like let's not just shoot men in the head because somebody said they did something wrong. So I guess I'm in the misogynist category because I
Because
think
you're
they should have
supporting
like
men.
a fair trial
Your
and
room is
stuff.
not to get completely devastated and yeah, trashed. Yeah.
So, but I'm like, I don't agree with every men's rights thing either. Like, there's some dumb stuff that comes out on that side. I'm
Oh,
just over here
absolutely. Yeah.
like, at the current moment, it's leaning a little biased in this direction. So I'm kind of like, let's tap it back this way. And somebody's like, hey, let's go over here. Whoa, bring it back in. Nope, nope. Here. You're
Yeah.
wrong and you're wrong. Okay. Everybody wrong.
Right.
Let's here. What is wrong with
Yeah.
y'all? So, like I said, if somebody comes with some legit, this is what happened, this is how I can show you what happened, take him down. Like, what are we talking about? Get him. All
Yeah.
me is not like, oh no, we have to protect this man because no, you violated going down.
Yeah.
That's how it works. That's the law. You violated going down. But once again, I think I'm kind of biased from not to go racial, but there's kind of a history in this country of this happening to black men where,
Mm.
someone else is like, hey, he did this thing, and then they literally lynch him.
Yeah.
No questions asked, no proof, no witnesses, just she said it, kill him.
Yeah.
And that's where it started. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
did Bill do it? Did Bill not do it? I'm over here like, you know what? Can we try to figure it out? Can we
And
give
again,
him
I'm
a
s- and then I'm still in the party of most likely he probably did that stuff, but I'm still the same thing of like, even if I believe wholeheartedly he probably did some stuff, I need to see a court case where there's some evidence that's coming forth other than just he said, she said. Just for the fairness of whatever the verdict is. I can have beliefs all day, but the verdict is going to affect both her life and his life.
But that's the problem with it because if we're doing something 30 years later, all we have is he said, she said. We
Mm,
don't have video footage of him coming out of the hotel room.
great kits.
We don't have blood work with the drug in her system. Like I said, there's what if this happens, you wake up, something's wrong, go straight to the police station. Straight to it. I promise you the
Yes.
police will be like, okay,
As
let's
opposed to giving him a sweater or going to his comedy show.
you
Yeah.
know what, show up and give him handcuffs. That'll be your present. Instead of a sweater,
Not the kinky
give him
kind.
handcuffs. I mean, it's up to you. Some of them wanted to go back for seconds. So
Maybe, yeah.
I still can't understand. I'm sorry, ladies, I'm sorry if this is stupid and misogynistic, but I don't understand going back for seconds from someone who violated you in
Yeah,
that
because
way.
we've heard that story several times where it's like, oh, I got violated, then I
I
went back or I
just,
stayed the night, or we went out a couple times after that. And it's just like, so was it an actual thing, or was it just like you because I've definitely heard of like, hookup happening, and then the woman's thinking, okay, we're gonna have a second hookup, a third hookup, and for the dude who's just a one nighter, she feels some kind of way about it. And now, oh, I regret this. Oh, it must be assault. Not that it happens a lot, but it has those cases have happened, and people like guys in school have lost football scholarships
right.
and other various things and
Oh,
positions and things for that stuff like that has happened to where that is a genuine concern.
this was a fiction. It was a show called Lie to Me. Love that show.
I know
So
that, yeah.
I will say it was fiction. This is not an actual real case, but there was a situation where it was a football player who was at a college party and he sleeps with this young lady and turns out she's underage. And so the dad found out and went after him, like wanted his head. It was bad. Matter of fact, it was Chadwick Boseman played the role. Anybody want to look
Aw.
that up? Yeah, that was one of his earlier roles. He was the football player star, and so it went through. And what happened was the girl got caught, and she panicked and was like, "You know what? He raped me," and that's what she went with. And so at that point, she's committed to the lie because so the dad's going after him. Turns out, it was a dare with her and her high school friends. They wanted to sleep with the college dude before they finished high school. She
Oh,
pursued him, and there was video footage. That's what was going to take him down because they recorded it. Turns out it was her camera. She recorded it for proof to show her friends that she did it.
mm,
But she panicked, left the room. One of the other guys found it and posted it, thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna get my bro.
yeah,
Turns out she was underage. Now he about to spend the rest of his life in jail
yeah,
off of some stuff she wanted to do, and then changed her story so she didn't look bad. And you like,
yeah.
that's my
And
whole
it's
thing.
funny.
Of like,
And what's sad is like I think sometimes I think for women that hear these kind of things that are like, oh my God, what that's what this and that. I don't think they understand. Like most guys have had at least one or two incidences where a woman lied on them. I know I had one where a woman tried to say that I got her pregnant, even though she wasn't pregnant at all. Like we've been in those scenarios where like these things happen. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, like, oh, and then these women that come along for Cosby, and it could potentially be the truth, or it could be that they're out for payday. Again, I think he probably did it, but 60 women, that's a lot. I can't
once
imagine a
again,
couple of them
though,
there might have been it.
honestly, I still think it's a blend. I really think it's somewhere in between there. I'm like, if you've done this to 60 women, you telling me no woman has put the word out like, hey, look, ladies, if
Like
you're not gonna
ever.
go to if you're not gonna take him to court, if you're not gonna do the type of violations, you're not even gonna warn the next woman. like, hey, look, he got a little rep. You might not want to catch yourself
Or
slipping.
or even if they don't know each other, not a single one of the 61s ever. 60 is a high number to not have any one of them go to the
That's
police
what I'm over
ever.
here like. I don't know 60 necessarily proves his guilt. I'm over here like, if anything, I'm looking at the ladies like y'all suck. I'm sorry. Like, d- maybe dudes are gossips because I'm like, if a dude is like, hey, look, this is a problem. Look, I got a little girl and I got burnt. He go tell his homies, don't do that. Don't go down that road. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like something's wrong here. You don't want to play. So for women to be like, oh yeah, I'm violated. He's the worst person ever. I don't want to take him on. And then you see another woman with him, and you're like, oh well, it's her turn now. Really? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I feel
Yeah.
like there would have been, like you said, there was kind of an industry rep at some point. So now you're like, okay, there's a risk.
Yeah.
Plain and simple, there's a risk. If I deal with this person, there's a risk. Um, but no, it's come out like the whole casting couch thing. What's his name? Terry Crews. Terry Crews was saying he got proposition. It's a dude. It's a big, strong, muscle
Yeah. Oh my
bound
God. Yeah.
dude who was like, yo, I went to certain situations and people propositioned me with certain things. Like, yo, what's up? Like, yeah, if you want to move forward with your career, that whole thing is like, that was a major part of that industry.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, now 30 years later, I
Because in
didn't
those
like
situations,
it.
like Terry Crews clearly was able to say no. And so it's like,
Well,
women have the authority to say, I don't want to do that. I'm gonna get out. Even if it's the threat of the career. It's like it's not fair that it's at the threat of their
no, some would
career.
say that they were intimidated. They didn't feel like, once again, Terry Crews, big strong dude, he felt like he could say no. Um, I will say that I get that side of it where some women feel physically intimidated by the person. They're
Right.
like, I don't want to be. I've heard enough people say like I really was afraid of being
Right.
hurt or
And they're
worse.
the only one in the room. Yeah. And they're not going to those situations. Like if it's not at a hotel, they're not going to those situations thinking, oh, I'm going to go to a casting person's office and then somebody gets sexually harassed. That's not a thing that's going to be going on in their head in that situation.
Well, I mean, The Office. I think it happened a lot of different places, but I feel
I'm
like
saying office versus like, oh, he told me to come to a hotel room for casting. That'd be more like red bells. I mean, red alarms, red alarms, red alarms. Going to an office,
that's
most
what I
women
was saying. It's like, to be fair, there are times like that where okay, the casting happened in the hotel, but I'm like, usually there's other people there, or like I said, you bring somebody with you. You know what I'm
mm,
saying? It's if it's just gonna be like, if I'm giving advice to somebody who's trying to get into the industry, I'm gonna tell them certain things like, look, this is what you're gonna do. Bring someone with you, make sure that the people there, let people know where you are, some kind of way to cover yourself. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
to have a way out. But the whole bring a friend thing is like, oh yeah, my manager's gonna come with me. Oh no, it's just BS. Red flag.
Red flag. Yeah, yeah.
You can't bring your manager, you can't bring your assistant, you can't bring nobody with you to a meeting. It's a meeting, right? It's a business meeting. Why do I have to be alone for a business meeting? That's when I'm like, okay, yeah, that's
Because
crazy.
most castings I've been to usually have at least three people in the room outside of me. So if it's one on one, that's already suspect.
Shoot, bring your attorney. I can't bring my attorney. Oh, clearly, yeah, no, you're not trying to do business with me. Somebody has to read the contract, so they're gonna read the contract. What's good? Stuff like that, where it's just like, I don't know, but I'm sure there was a time where that wasn't common knowledge. But if we're talking 60 people over how many, 30 years, at some point, that was never a thought. Just hey,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh, we're having a business meeting here. Let's have a drink. Yeah, because the whole thing is, okay, I'm gonna put something in your drink. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And again, he was known for having quaaludes. This was not a secret.
So I'm like, my thing is that side of things, along with the knowledge of the women who do want to loosen up to have more fun, we'll say.
Mhm.
I'm like, to a certain extent, that was par for the course. If this is 60 women saying he violated them, there's probably 100 who are like, yeah, that's exactly what I signed up for. Why are you mad? But they can't say nothing, especially now, because
Right.
cancel.
Well, because
So,
they're being judged for standards today that back then were because I saw something today where they were saying like
mhm.
basically Quaaludes were like the Molly of today. Like it's a drug that loosens you up a little bit and then it more affects guys than it does the woman. But like ultimately, like people knew that was the thing. So it'd be like today saying, hey, let's go pop some Molly in my hotel and see what happens.
And the crazy part is, you get a lot of people to be like, okay, like in this world today, that's like, oh yeah, we're partying, we're gonna go to. that would be a yes much more than it would be a no.
Oh
But
yeah.
once again, the problem is like, oh, well, I was drugged. Were you drugged or did you take some drugs? Did,
Like you went
did
to
you
place.
bring the drugs to the party
You know,
yourself?
it's
Like,
funny. A few years ago, when I was an Uber driver, I remember I had two girls in the back of my car. They were, I mean, women. They were like probably in their early 20s, and they were distinctly. I was listening to a conversation. They were saying one of them was like, "Yeah, we're gonna go to this place to get these random drugs, and then we're gonna go party with these new guys that we just met." And my first thought was, and if anything pops off at that party, it's gonna be the guy's fault. But she's setting up the scenario to go there in the first place. So
yeah,
it's gonna it was whatever happens, dude's got to be in control. But like, why are you already setting up a scenario where that could possibly happen to you?
that's the thing. That's probably what she wanted to happen. She wanted to have a sexual encounter with this guy that she met. So,
Mm,
okay, she's setting up the scenario. So then it's at what point does that decision change?
right.
And that's where there's no real line. It's okay.
Because now we
So
can say
let's
like,
say that
oh,
scenario.
if the girl's on top of him and she decides midway through, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, but he's already inside of her. Is that now rape because he didn't pop out the minute she said, I'm not doing this anymore? Like, where's that line start?
That's the I was going to take it back further, but I mean that's a very direct graphic example. Um, and I mean, from my perspective, she would have been in control of that scenario. So it's now up to her to remove
Mm.
the already inserted pieces. But I don't know how that would play out. Like,
In court, that might play out differently. I was drugged and I wasn't quite myself. And oh, I realized midway through, like I was coming out of a haze, and I was like, what am I doing on top of this guy? Oh my God. Like it can be played out a bunch of different ways.
that's deep.
I'm saying.
That's really. It's almost where you're like, you know what?
That's why I said I don't if I'm not getting a hell yes all the way, if I'm starting to do some stuff, she's like,
Oh,
oh,
this whole consent app, I think, is really a thing that should take off. Like, I don't know why it's not more.
mm,
There's an app for that. There's literally a okay here. Yeah, we're gonna go back to my spot. Sign this.
mm.
Like,
And even that, what good is the app if a woman could say in court, oh, but I was drunk and I signed it under duress.
you know what? Just do porn. Because according to what you're saying, that's the only real way to do it. And I mean, even that didn't work for Ryan. But yeah, porn, you have the ID, you have paperwork signed, you have a video confessional. Hi, my name is so and so. Here's my ID. I am here to have sex with so and so and so and so. And so, if that don't hold up in court, just stop having sex with people. Just let it go. Just be a virgin. Or not a virgin. What's the word?
Be a hand
Celibate.
connoisseur. Be a hand
Just be
connoisseur.
celibate because I don't
Yeah.
know. Like, what it's just one of those. It's like it's a roll of the dice. It's like okay, I'm gonna play. I'm gonna gamble, and so the stakes are either I get some or I go to jail.
Yep. And a lot of guys have decided, I mean, you know what? I'm just done. I'm just done. I don't want to deal with any of it. I'm safer alone. Why try?
It's just the whole thing. It's like I don't think women are really grasping what jail means, and that's not to be insulting, but like this is a huge life altering type of situation, and yeah, I'm not trying to go there on some accidental stuff, on some
Yeah.
I just made something up. I didn't mean it. And I'm like, it sounds stupid, but that happens too. Like I've heard of scenarios in like custody battles and stuff like that where people are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna accuse him of something so that I can win this court battle. Not
Dude.
realizing it comes with prison time because the accusation is illegal.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I didn't want him to go to jail. I just wanted people not to like him.
Dude, I kid you not. I saw this video the other day of this guy, calm as crap, but he was filming inside of his brother's house outside where his ex girlfriend slash baby's mom or whatever like came by and basically like smashed this dude's car windows, ran into the back of his car when he was out there to check the windows, came and smashed the brother's front door. And but he was just on the thing, like, oh, there she is outside. Oh, she's about to do my thing. And he was doing that because they had been in court for like a couple years. And she was saying all these things about, oh, he's been abusive and he's been this and that. But come to find out, she's the one that's doing all this stuff. And he's just sitting there like, this is what's happening. Like, I'm just trying to see my kid. And this woman's out here trying to like ruin my name and like smash my stuff up and all sort of stuff.
But if
And
she
I don't,
accuses you, you gotta believe her.
right. But there's so many women that'll be like, oh, that doesn't happen a lot. Or that, how often does it happen? It's like more than you think. Most guys, again, aren't
Johnny
trying to,
Depp.
huh?
Johnny Depp
Yeah.
just got canceled from Pirates when it comes out. His was Ember.
Yeah.
It's at least equal, but it seems like she's the one doing a lot of the extras. And it's over here like people are like, "Yo, can we get him back? Can we uncancel Johnny?" Like clearly the evidence is coming out. He got other exes that's like, "Yeah, that's not him. He ain't doing all that." It's
Yeah.
just this one person who clearly has like a police record of these are the violations. Who's now saying it
Yep.
was him,
And did
and but
not
no,
lose
we
her
gotta
job
cancel him.
on Aquaman 2.
But yeah, so we gotta cancel him because she said it, and it's like this isn't landing right, and that's why it's just like you can't just be like, okay, somebody said it, immediately act. There's got to be some kind of cooperation. There's got to be some kind of way to back it up and prove it, or at least give it the whole reasonable doubt. That's the whole point of all that. Because there are people who lie, and
Yeah.
sadly, I know it's hard to believe, but some of them are women.
Oh no, never. No. Yeah.
So just feel like before someone goes to prison for however long, possibly the rest of their life, we should maybe check the story out a little bit. And if that's too much of a violation, if that's too encroaching and too traumatic of an experience to have to, prove what you said before we ruin someone's life and string them
Especially
up.
if he's especially if you're sending like a 70-year-old dude to jail. Like real talk. Again, if he did this stuff under the jail, but you got to have a story that stays the same every single time. You're
That's
gonna
the
do
thing,
that.
though. I can't even say that because once again, you got the comparison of this man is accused of giving women drugs and having sex with them. This woman admitted to lying on a man to have him murdered. Oh, she's too old to go to jail. Throw him under the jail.
Hmm.
These women who are accusing him are alive to accuse him. I'm sorry if I can't equate that with this man is dead and has been for 60 years. The whole
Right.
time they weren't telling their story, he couldn't tell his story.
So do you think there's a bias between how men are prosecuted and how women are prosecuted in relevance to these kind of abuse, sexual assault, etc. type of cases?
Do I think? I'll say I've seen several cases that tend to lean in that direction.
Hmm.
It appears to be how that works.
Interesting. Interesting.
I don't know how else to like
Yeah.
half the stuff we said today has been that I've seen. I don't know where it was. It was like it wasn't. It's not like a national thing. It was like a specific place where they were saying the accusation. If an accusation is proven false, the consequence should match what the consequence of the accusation
The
was.
bend. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's one of those like it now puts the burden of proof with a consequence. Like, and that's the thing. It's like, oh, well, that's just gonna make more women not want to come forward. It's like it should make more women come forward sooner while there's still proof, is how I
Right.
feel about it. But it's one of those like,
Or if nothing else, have in the back of your mind, if this happens to me, be prepared with all the proof in the world. Because unfortunately, it's not like this won't happen to more women. Unfortunately, that's the part that sucks. But at least you can say in your head, okay, but since I don't want my case to go this way, be prepared to get all the evidence you can while you're there. No matter, even if it feels bad or it feels like it's a violation of yourself, like go to the police station, collect the clothes, collect any pictures or things you have, any proof of text that you have, like send all that stuff day one, because day 5,642 might be a little harder to do that.
yeah. And just the whole um I don't know how to say it, but like the whole thing of interactions immediately after, soon after, people around, like it's really difficult when everybody's like, yeah, no, she seemed fine, like right after that. Or yeah, like you said, like the next, honestly, that doesn't hold up though. The whole thing of taking pictures together and giving presents and all the rest of that, it's kind of been established that that's something that happens in abuse type of cases.
Okay.
So it doesn't absolve the person. Like that's no longer a factor. They're like, okay, yeah, that happens all the time. Which I'm still kind of baffled by, but it's just like, yeah, I'm like, if I'm always like, I react to intention. So I used to tell my friends, like, if you broke my arm accidentally, I can forgive you. But if you
Mm.
poke me in the arm out of anger, we have a problem. And so I'm over here like, if I feel like somebody has intentionally violated me in a way, I'm not going to be okay with it. And I'm really not going to be able to fake it. And that's the part where I'm like, it's hard for me to grasp that concept. And I'm like, I get that it happens. And I get that we need to be sensitive to it. And if I'm coming off insensitive, I do apologize. It's not my intention. I'm just trying to get to a point where we can live together. You know what I'm saying? Where we can resolve the conflict more than anything.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those like, I mean, I've been known to kind of hold a grudge sometimes. I've been known to decide I'm not going to speak with and be connected with and all that kind of stuff. It's just like, yeah, you got to go. And the crazy thing is, I've known women who are very good at this, where they're like, yeah, I'm disassociating with you. You don't exist anymore. We're not cool. I don't forgive you. Like,
Yeah.
done. So I don't know. It's like somehow in these type of assault cases, that's not as common. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do with that. Like, I don't know. I really can't comprehend it for one.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I'm like, if somebody like hurt me, um, yeah, like I get I'm gonna need some apologies. I'm gonna need some. Okay, you know what? It's gonna sound weird, but I'm recanting one of my earlier statements. I
Okay.
keep comparing being punched in the face. And I
Mhm.
know it sounds stupid, but I'm like, you can break bones, you can like shatter jaws. Like there could be some real damage for getting punched in the face, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, if somebody literally like, broke my jaw, broke my orbital, I got medical bills and stuff. I really just had the epiphany, like, could I accept an apology? Because that is an assault. I could have them thrown in jail
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
that assault. So could there be situations where I could accept an apology for that? And I'm like, okay, maybe, but it's
It's just
situational to me.
it's just a huge thing too. Like, yeah.
And I'm still just like, for something like a sexual assault, like I'm trying to understand what a forgivable motivation would be for that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, because apology seems so it's honestly of all things that seems so weak. Like, I just want an apology. Like, and maybe because women are, more in tune with language and stuff, maybe that's the thing that they need to be able to hear that to feel a thing. But it just seems weird, like that'd be the only thing you'd want to ask for is just an apology, like if there's such a big violation.
because the Ti and Tiny, the lady that was accusing them, she was on the
Yeah.
same thing. She was like, "Yeah, I just was saying, I just want an apology. Like, I just want you guys to admit what you did and accept accountability." And they're like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I ain't got nothing to do with this."
Yeah.
Because once again, I'm like, that is an admission of guilt. At which point, we're not looking at prosecution
Yeah.
for a crime. So that's where I'm like, it feels like more of a setup thing than an actual. I just wanted you to say sorry
Right.
publicly, recorded.
Right. Like, then you can have some kind of signatures. Like, if you say I'm sorry, I won't prosecute you. Here's a contract or some stuff. But maybe it's one of those things where it's like maybe
Well, that's
like
what happened with Bill Cosby. That don't work
that is
either.
true. That is true. Like I said, all those again, that's why we can't have contracts turn to like based on feelings. Like, oh well, we'll uphold this until we decide we want to do it again. We feel hurt by it again, and in this case, we're gonna bring it back up. Like that can't be a thing either, because that's not fair to anybody.
I want to bring up one more thing before we get out of here.
Yeah,
Definitely,
yeah,
the was it the Central Park Five?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I wasn't even familiar with this case for the longest time, and to find out one of the dudes wasn't even there, the one who was old enough to be tried as an adult and went to real life grown up prison
Mm,
wasn't even there that day. He just went to the spot with his friend, so he didn't have to go by himself and
yeah,
got prison time. And it wasn't even the victim who accused him. It was the prosecutor was like, they have to be guilty. Somebody has to be guilty. We're
yeah.
gonna protect the victim and throw them in jail. These monsters,
Protect the victim.
not these children, these monsters,
Yes.
these hoodlums, these gangbangers. Once again, dehumanizing
Yeah.
because they were children. We're talking 14, 15, 16-year olds. That's kids.
They were
All right.
thugs. They were beasts.
But of course they didn't because duh, and we just have to believe. And that's the thing, I wasn't even believing the victim because the victim didn't know. She was like, I wasn't even conscious. I don't know who did it.
Yeah.
They was in jail for the longest. And I'm like, to me, that's why. It's like, that's why I'm like, nah,
Because the punishment, the consequence is so severe, you can't be unsure of that kind of stuff.
exactly.
Yeah, it makes
It's
sense.
it's way too, and it's not like, okay, sorry, my bad. You can get back to life now.
Yeah.
You're still a felon. You're still missing what 20 years of life skills and experiences that make it that much more difficult to acclimate to regular society. You have the trauma of whatever you went through
Hmm.
as a kid. Like, it's so much that it's like you're not getting your life back at that point. And it's just like, so if you're accusing somebody,
Yeah, because Cosby definitely
just
can't get his life back at this point for any kind of entertainment stuff, whatever. Not that he needs to. He's probably still got decent money, but it's just like even if he wanted to, that option is
Bill
out the window.
Cosby,
Huh?
you said
For
Cosby,
Cosby, yeah, yeah, yeah.
but that's the thing. Even if he did, even if he came back on top and ran it, and just was that was still 3 years. That's 3 years gone. Like, ain't no
Yep.
giving me my 3 years back. So that's where I'm like, mm, mm-mm.
Mm,
And so I'm like, if that's even on the table, if that's even where your mindset is, I'm cool.
yeah.
I don't need to be nowhere near it. Y'all, you have fun. Good luck with life. I'm gonna be over here.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. Assuming that we don't get canceled for it, we will be back at some point with another show. But this has
I feel
been
like
great.
I feel like Chappelle show.
I know,
He was
right? Like,
like,
oh, we're still here.
"Everyone got canceled yet. This might be the one to do it."
Yeah. And again, people, we're always like, again, you've heard our comments, obviously. Yeah, you can leave in the comments if you have your own opinions about if you think that we're right on what we're thinking about, if we think that we need to have an alternative viewpoint. We love the conversation in general. So leave your comments down below, and who knows, might answer on a show at some point. But for
Hey,
now,
here's a
this is
weird
our
idea. Like, maybe try and do it without name calling. Just
that would be
like,
great. Like I know
hey,
YouTube is
I have a different opinion than you do, and here's why I think it's right. And you
yes.
know what's gonna happen? I'll be like, you know what? You might have a point. You can actually change my opinion if you approach
Yeah.
respectfully.
Yeah, if you force it though, we'll be like, you know what? It's time to attack all hell. But yeah, we can have a little
Yeah.
conversation. Hey, so we might have said some points. You might be like, hey, you guys are ignorant here and there. That's fine. Just let us know what it is and we'll talk about it. It's all good.
Ignorant is fixable.
Indeed. Indeed. So yeah, I will catch you next time, Joe.
All right.